Hello, my name is RC. I usually don't go to movies unless someone recommends a movie to me. I've been too disappointed over the years to just throw down my hard cash for celluloid entertainment. Nevertheless, recently I read a review in the Miami Herald about a documentary that recently came out entitled Searching for Sugar Man. Searching for Sugar Man. It's a documentary that traces the steps of a curious South African music store owner who wanted to find an artist who had been popular in South Africa during the latter stages of apartheid there. And in the documentary, this South African store owner actually finds the artist who was obscure, to say the least, even back in the late 60s and early 70s when he released his only two albums, the first of which was entitled Cold Fact. Cold Fact became very popular in South Africa and sold hundreds of thousands of albums. Of course, the documentary reveals that Sixto Rodriguez, the artist in question, got no royalties. And so the documentary shows how this South African music store owner finds this man, an humble man, a man who even people who knew him in Detroit didn't really know who he was. He was a musician of Indian, Mexican descent, and his features obviously of Indian, Mexican descent. The name Rodriguez speaks to his indigeneity. Long story short, his music was wildly popular in South Africa, and which spurred this music store owner to try to find him. Sixto Rodriguez was a construction worker, hard labor, often seen on the streets of Detroit back in his young days. But he had a sense of justice. He had a conscience about the ills of society, and the lyrics of his music reflected it. In fact, when you hear him sing, he sounds very similar in tone to Bob Dylan, and his lyrics parallels Bob Dylan's lyrics in content, in double entendre, and in other elements of writing, and in conceptualization. Beautiful artist. Watching the film, I got misty-eyed several times because the prevailing theme of the film is redemption. Here, a man who got no respect, hardly any attention, no attention in the United States where he's from, having been popular in another land, in South Africa, finally being found and brought to South Africa and being given a stage to perform. Thousands of people showed up. By the time he came to South Africa in the late 90s, and it was just a beautiful thing to see and witness. Him and his three daughters. He had three daughters that he took with him. However, I'm filming this comment to make a more salient point. When I read the review, I was interested in seeing the film because the review said that this artist's music had resonated in South Africa during apartheid. I wanted to see that. An American artist who had made connections with South Africa during apartheid, got to see it. However, in the film, there may have been maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 at the most, non-white people in the entire film. Of the thousands of people who came to see him, unless they just didn't show the concerts where there were Africans, there were no non-white people in the audiences. And one gathers from the film that Sixto Rodriguez's music resonated with white South Africans because white South Africans needed their voice. They needed their brand of protest against apartheid. And Sixto Rodriguez's music did that for them. And so therefore he was wildly popular in the latter stages of apartheid in South Africa. The point that I want to make is that all that's good. I mean, I love Sixto Rodriguez's personal story, and I like the fact that the people who did the film did it. We need to know that story. The problem, though, is that like much other media in the context of white supremacy that white people do, one is led to think that somehow white pain is a substitute for the pain of victims of racism. That somehow or another, the conscience of white persons had as much, sometimes even more, to do with the liberation of non-white people than the victims themselves. I don't like that sell. Perhaps the people who are promoting the film don't feel that it's necessary to differentiate. But I didn't like landing in the seat of that theater only to find that it was only indirectly related to the liberation of non-white people in South Africa. Peace.